To be a safe driver, you have to know what is going on around you at all times. A large part of being safe is looking ahead and knowing how much stopping distance you'll need. The general rule for drivers is to look at least 12 to 15 seconds in advance. In the city, this equates to about 1 block, whereas on the highway, 12 seconds is about a quarter of a mile. There are multiple reasons you should look ahead. Look ahead for traffic and road conditions. Look ahead for vehicles coming to a stop or entering your lane. Look ahead for stoplights that may change. If you pay attention to these things, you can adjust your speed or change lanes if necessary. While looking ahead is important, you also have to look to the sides and rear consistently. This means that you must check your mirrors regularly and know what other vehicles are around you. Checking your mirrors and looking to the right and left will help you know where a vehicle might be in your blind spot. Flat mirrors on a truck are used to monitor traffic, check clearances, and see the side and rear of the trailer. These mirrors have a blind spot up to 400 feet behind the trailer, so you should adjust them so that you can see 200 feet to the rear alongside of the truck. Make sure to set and check your mirrors before starting any trip and recognize that each mirror should show some part of the vehicle. The truck and trailer must be straight to properly adjust your mirrors. Many large vehicles have curved mirrors that show wider areas than flat mirrors. However, it's important to know that these convex mirrors make things seem further away than they actually are. These convex mirrors should be positioned so that you can see the entire side of the truck up to the mirror mounts. You will always use your mirrors to determine and assist with the lane change. Before you change lanes, you should determine if it is necessary. The more you make lane changes, the higher your risk for an accident. One of the key factors in being a successful driver is communicating your intentions with others on the road. Often, it is difficult for other drivers to know what you're going to do unless you tell them. In order to communicate successfully, there are some general rules to follow. First, signal early. This is the best way to keep others from trying to pass you when it's not safe to pass. Once you signal, signal continuously until you have completed the lane change or turn. Pass as quickly as you can without exceeding the speed limit. Once the maneuver is complete, it is safe to turn off your signal. Some trucks and buses don't have self-canceling signals, so you may have to manually turn it off. You should also communicate when you're about to slow down by lightly tapping on the brakes a few times. Remember that your vehicle is larger than most other vehicles on the road, so it will be difficult for them to see what's happening in front of you. Flashing your brake lights will help warn others of an upcoming hazard. Believe it or not, other drivers may be so involved in what they are doing that they may not see you. If you have to pass someone, always assume they don't. When it is legal to do so, tap your horn lightly, and if it is nighttime, flash your lights to let them know you're passing. If you are driving slowly or stopped on the side of the road, be sure to use your four-way emergency flashers. Tail lights will not necessarily offer enough of a warning. If you do have to stop on the side of the road, you should not only turn on your four-way flashers, but you are required to put out your emergency warning devices within 10 minutes. You are required to have 3 warning triangles on your vehicle at all times. Where they should be placed varies on the type of road you're on. On a 2-lane road or undivided highway, place one triangle 100 feet in front of the vehicle and the 2 other triangles 10 feet and 100 feet behind. On a one-way or divided highway, all the triangles should go behind the vehicle, one at 10 feet, 100 feet, and 200 feet. If you're stopped and your vehicle cannot be seen within 500 feet because of a hill, curve, or other obstruction, move the rearmost triangle to a location down the road to provide warning. Always remember that when you set out your triangles, you should hold them between yourself and oncoming traffic for your own safety. Driving too fast for road, weather, and traffic conditions is a major cause of accidents. You must adjust your speed based on the conditions, but know that this also means that your stopping distance will vary. There are 3 components to total stopping distance: perception distance, reaction distance, and braking distance. Perception distance is the distance the vehicle travels from the time you see a hazard until your brain recognizes it. Perception time for alert drivers is about 3/4 of a second. Reaction distance is the time it takes for your brain to tell your foot to release the accelerator and press the brakes. Just like perception time, reaction time is also 3/4 of a second. Braking distance is the distance the vehicle travels once you've applied the brake pedal. At 55 miles per hour on dry pavement and with good brakes, it can take a heavy vehicle about 390 feet to stop. This equals about 4.5 seconds. Your total stopping distance is calculated based on these three elements. A big factor in stopping and stopping distance is speed management. Every time you double your speed, it takes 4 times longer to stop. If you are traveling 55 miles per hour, your stopping distance is equal to 1 football field. It's also important to note that an empty truck requires greater stopping distance because it has less traction. Heavy vehicles work best when they are fully loaded. However, be aware heavily loaded trailers can overpower a poorly maintained braking system. Obviously, road conditions are a significant factor in your speed and stopping distance. Some road conditions reduce your traction and call for slower speeds. If a road is slippery, it will take longer to stop and will be harder to turn without skidding. Wet roads actually double your stopping distance, which means you should reduce your speed by 1/3 on wet roads. If you're driving on packed snow, reduce your speed by half or more. Even worse, if it is icy, reduce your speed to a crawl and stop driving as soon as it is possible. Some slippery road surfaces are more difficult to identify. Know that shaded areas of a road will remain slippery long after other areas have melted. You will also want to pay attention to slippery surfaces on overpasses and bridges. Snow and ice aren't the only hazards you should worry about. Rain is also a concern. Puddles on the roadway because of excessive rain can cause your tires to lose contact with the road or have little or no traction. This is called hydroplaning. When you hydroplane, you may not be able to steer or brake. Because of this, you don't regain control by stepping on the brakes. Instead, release the accelerator and push in the clutch. This will slow the vehicle and let the wheels turn freely. Drivers must also adjust their speed for curves in the road. If you take a curve too fast, your wheels can lose traction. This is especially true in a truck or a bus where there is a high center of gravity, which increases the likelihood of a rollover around a curve. Because braking around a curve is dangerous, the best plan of action is to slow to a safe speed before you enter into a curve. Conditions like fog, rain, or snow also affect visibility. These conditions require you to slow down to be able to stop within the distance you can see ahead. Remember, it takes 450 feet to stop a vehicle at 55 miles per hour driving on a straight road on a clear day. In this situation, it is safe to travel 55 miles per hour, but fog, rain, and snow limit your visibility to 160 feet. To compensate for your limited vision, you must slow down. Sometimes you may have to drive at night. There are a few challenges to be aware of. First is vision and glare. It is required to dim high-beam lights within 500 feet of oncoming vehicles or when traveling behind another vehicle. Another is fatigue. This will prevent you from reacting or seeing hazards quickly, and the only solution is to get off the road and sleep. The last challenge is visibility of the road. Many areas have poor lighting at night, which will reduce your ability to see hazards. As with winter driving, there are a few things to consider when driving in extreme heat. Pay attention to bleeding tar on the road as it makes the road slippery. Slow down to prevent overheating of your engine and tires. This can also prevent tire failure and tire fires. It is imperative in these extreme conditions to check your tires every 2 hours or every 100 miles. On downgrades, you must maintain a speed that is not too fast for the total weight of the vehicle. Never drive faster than the posted speed limit. Also, pay attention to warning signs indicating steepness of the grade. You have to be careful with your brakes in this situation because they could fade or fail when used too much. Use proper braking technique by applying the brakes just enough to feel the vehicle slow. Once your speed is reduced to 5 miles per hour below your safe speed, release the brakes. Repeat this process until you have reached the bottom of the downgrade. No matter what the condition is, you must always be aware of your following distance. Allow 1 second for each 10 feet of vehicle length at speeds under 40 miles per hour. Once your truck speed hits more than 40 miles per hour, add 1 second for additional speed. For example, a 40-foot truck traveling at 40 miles per hour should leave 4 seconds of following distance. A 50-foot truck traveling 45 miles per hour should leave 6 seconds of following distance. Obviously, in inclement weather, you should allow for even more following distance. Space management is also an issue when turning because the path of the outside tractor tire is different than the path of the truck. This is called off-tracking. For this reason, the button hook is the preferred approach to a turn. To button hook, drive your tractor straight out until the trailer tandems are forward enough to clear the corner as you bring your tractor around. This is the best way to negotiate a tight turn. No matter what, you always have to be aware of hazards. A hazard is any condition or road user that presents a possible danger to you or your equipment. This includes the road conditions we've already discussed, but it also includes the actions of other drivers and pedestrians. Outside of weather, downgrades, distractions, and other hazards, railroad crossings can be complicated as well. This is where the roadway crosses train tracks. These crossings should always be considered dangerous, and you should always assume there is an approaching train. There are 2 types of crossings, passive and active. Passive crossings do not have any type of traffic control device. This requires you to recognize the fact that there is a railroad crossing, search for trains, and decide if everything is clear to cross safely. Passive crossings have yellow, circular, warning signs, pavement markings, and crossbucks to assist you in recognizing that there is a crossing. Active crossings, on the other hand, have traffic control devices installed at the crossing to regulate traffic. These include gates and flashing lights that often feature bells. When lights start to flash and arms start to come down, stop. If the nature of your cargo makes a stop mandatory, you are required to stop whether there is a train or not. If this is the case, proceed with your emergency flashers on. Never race a train to a crossing. It is incredibly difficult to estimate how fast a train is approaching. Reduce your speed to the point where you could stop if necessary. Don't just rely on signals to forewarn you of an approaching train. In order to be safe, you must double-check to make sure it is safe to drive through a railroad crossing. It is important to remember that you should always look for trains because you may not hear them approaching. When you do cross a track, take every precaution possible to not get stuck on it. If this does happen to you, get out of the vehicle, away from the tracks, and get emergency assistance. Driving emergencies can occur at any time and typically happen unexpectedly. You need to know what action to take in case a driving emergency occurs. It is important to note that stopping may not be the safest thing to do in an emergency. It may be the safest to steer or counter-steer as you encounter another vehicle drifting in your lane. Shoulders often offer an available escape route. Make sure your braking is controlled by applying the brakes without locking them. Sometimes you may need to use the stab braking technique, but only if you're in a tractor that does not have anti-lock brakes. To do this, you apply the brakes all the way, release when the wheels lock up, and then apply again when the wheels start rolling. Sometimes your tires will lose their grip on the road. This is called a skid and can happen because you're over-braking, over-steering, over-accelerating, or driving too fast for the road conditions. When you have a drive wheel skid, you can regain traction by taking the foot off of the accelerator, or if conditions are slippery, push in the clutch. If it's a rear wheel skid, you should stop braking and counter-steer to correct. Now, if the front wheels skid, simply let the vehicle slow down without braking or turning, as front wheel skids tend to go in a straight line regardless of how much you turn the wheel. Should you run into a situation where you have a brake failure, you should put your vehicle in a lower gear, pump the brakes, and use the parking brake. There are 2 reasons this may happen, either loss of hydraulic pressure or brake fade on a long downhill grade. If on a downhill grade, you can look for an escape ramp, but if a ramp is not available, take the least hazardous escape route. There is also the possibility of a tire failure. The proper procedure for this is to hold the wheel firmly with both hands. Stay off the brake because braking could cause loss of control, letting the vehicle slow and come to a stop. Check the tire once you have come to a complete stop. If you are ever involved in an accident, the first thing you should do is protect the area. If your vehicle is involved, get to the side of the road. If you are stopping to help, park away from the accident. Put on your flashers and set out your triangles. Next, notify authorities before you get out of the vehicle and try to determine your exact location. Finally, assist the injured. Do not move a seriously injured person unless there is a risk of fire or being run over. If possible, wait until the professionals arrive so the injured person gets the best care possible. In case of a fire, pull off the road away from buildings and trees to prevent the fire from spreading. Turn your engine off and keep the cargo doors closed. Using your fire extinguisher, put the fire out by aiming at the base of the fire.